So as I play more through and get past the 60-hour mark on Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I start thinking about what this game is going to do and shape for Nintendo in the future, and how Monolith Soft has actually, I would say, revolutionized what Nintendo thinks about and does as a company when it comes to a number of their projects. And after also hearing what Mr. Takahashi had to say here with his message to the fans about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that has me thinking with their next project and also with some of their current projects, big things are in order and are in line. And I'm going to talk about that with another heavily anticipated game with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel or 2. But before we get into all of that, what's good everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch, RPG, and live streams here first. Now let's go ahead and jump into this because I did cover this a little bit, but I wanted to expand upon it in its own video and talk about the implications of what Mr. Takahashi had to say here, not only for the future of the Xenoblade series, of course no spoilers here, but also for the future of Monolith Soft and for the other games that Monolith Soft also helps out on and works on. Now, in a message not that long ago, Mr. Takahashi teases the future and also has a general message for fans out there. So here's what he had to say. Quote, "Greetings to everyone who purchased Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This is Takahashi from Monolith Soft. Thanks to your support, we released the third Xenoblade title, 12 years after the original Xenoblade was released for the Wii in 2010. Xenoblade 3 has been called the culmination of the series up until now, and it is truly the culmination. We at Monolith have put everything we have cultivated over the past 12 years into it. It is also a stopping point to me. This title depicts the conclusion of the Xenoblade story that began with the Kloss experiment. While it is a conclusion, that does not mean it is the end of the Xenoblade series. It is just a stopping point in my mind. I think that everyone who has played this title and the additional stories in the expansion pass can imagine what lies in the future for Xenoblade. I have one recommendation for how to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Some things are marked by a question mark on the game map. Even if you are in the middle of progressing the main story after finding the question marks, try taking a detour. There are many encounters waiting there. Thank you for your continued support of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Of course, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is out now on the Nintendo Switch. You don't necessarily have to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 and the expansions to play and enjoy Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I wanted to just mention that because I get that question asked almost every single day via Twitter or on live streams or on my comment section of my videos. So just keep that in mind. Now you'll get a better enjoyment out of it and you'll understand and know certain things if you've played the previous games, but it's not a requirement. And heck, I recommend you might as well just hop into 3 now and then work your way backwards if you haven't played the games before. So Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country. Of course, with Definitive Edition, there's Future Connected. All of those are now available. The only Xenoblade game that's missing is Xenoblade Chronicles X, which isn't normally, or I would say canon-wise, completely story connected with a obvious story connection that Monolith Soft has put together to the trilogy of those games and the expansions, although there are theories out there. But let's talk about what Mr. Takahashi had to say here, because I think that this is not much, but he's also kind of hinting at a number of other things with this game. I do think that finally we will see that next big IP, or we'll see that next new IP or something different for their next game. Or I think that their next game is going to be a new style of Xenoblade game. So Xeno something else, kind of like how they had Xenogears, they had Xenosaga, they have Xenoblade. Now all of those aren't necessarily connected to each other story-wise, but they're still the Xeno something, the staple of a Monolith Soft game with alien worlds and technology and mechs and all sorts of cool futuristic slash not so futuristic stuff in the game. So I feel that it could be the next Xeno something else. So we have to wait and see. They could treat it like if it's a new IP or something different, but in the same branding of what they've done, or it could be a brand new Xenoblade game that completely moves to a whole separate type of situation. So there's various different options that are out there that could happen with what they do next. But I do want to talk just briefly about what he had to say here as well with the question marks. That has been the bane of why I have not beat the game yet, and why I'm like not even halfway done and 60 hours is because those question marks, and I'm playing the game on the hardest difficulty, and I want to get as much stuff, experience as much as I can, and get everything that I can get, and then beat the game and give you guys my full experience, non-spoiler, of what I think about this game and where it stacks up to everything, because this is ranking very high in my top RPGs of all time, and maybe even one of my top games of all time. Not even maybe, it is. Just where will it rank? So we'll talk about that once I'm completely finished with the game. But overall, the game is absolutely fantastic. It is a accumulation of what they've done so far, but I do think that this also is something that they've put so much time and effort into that it is going to connect a bit to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I'm not talking about the story or anything from Xenoblade connecting that way. I'm talking about their experience and where their standing is with Nintendo. Now, Monolith Soft has multiple different divisions, multiple different teams that are spread out. They have different locations throughout Japan. They're very nice locations, be it that too. And they all help out and support and even have main drivers, some of the main drivers behind getting Legend of Zelda, Splatoon, Animal Crossing, and various different other Nintendo games out. I personally feel that the work on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is not only inspiring the Zelda team and Monolith Soft, but it's also potentially giving them new ideas and new things to put in to even make the game better than what we thought it was going to be. Now, obviously, Breath of the Wild has one of the greatest open worlds that I've ever played when it comes to interaction and what they do. Xenoblade Chronicles has a phenomenal open world. It's extremely good for what they're trying to do. Doesn't have all the physics and certain stuff like Zelda has, but it's a completely different style of game. But I think that some of that inspiration, some of that drive that they did to make the world as big and as good as it is definitely going to rub off into The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild to top what they've done before. Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games of all time, in my opinion. It's my favorite Zelda game of all time. So I think that Monolith Soft and the Zelda team are working double time with this delay, especially with the delay, not only to improve the game quite a bit, but also add so many new things that maybe wouldn't have been in there if Breath of the Wild would have launched this holiday. I think that they're really trying to one up and take their time and the experience that they've learned over working on Zelda games for years, but also with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is going to play a key factor into the polish and the quality of this game, because Monolith Soft does have a heavy hand, does have a heavy influence on exactly how this game is going to turn out, especially with the open world and the landscapes, the vistas, the look of it, the ravines, the oceans, the waters, the lakes, whatever the case is. But I do feel that some of that combat, that supreme and expertly crafted combat, could make its way into The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild when it comes to their expertise. Not the same style, not all the classes and all the stuff that Xenoblade does, but some of the polish and depth that you can clearly see and lay out in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 could make that appearance in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that they're looking at some of those things, but I feel it's going to be interesting because there's one thing that the Zelda team and the Monolith Soft team, in terms of Nintendo teams, they are some of the most ambitious ones at Nintendo. They put together the biggest games. They work on some of the graphic intensive stuff that Nintendo has. Some of the best looking games throughout Nintendo's history have been the Zelda team, have been Monolith Soft. So I feel that there is definitely a next gen angle to what Monolith Soft and of course to what the Zelda team is doing. Whether that hardware is going to be something that we see in 2023 or 2024, I think that Monolith Soft's next game, and of course, whatever they're going to do for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, that's going to play a part into it. And I think that Monolith Soft is going to be one of the teams that really introduces people to whatever this new system can do, just like we saw with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at the beginning of the launch of the Nintendo Switch Wii U game, put it over to Nintendo Switch, being able to take that anywhere that you want. Obviously very impressive. But then also Xenoblade Chronicles 2, by the end of the first year on the Nintendo Switch, Monolith Soft and one of their smaller side teams getting that game done in about 2 years or so after the release of Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. So I think that we could see that tandem 1-2 punch when it comes to what the next system is and what Nintendo's doing, because these are two of Nintendo's most technically advanced type of teams that like to show off what they can do on new hardware and have done a great job in the past punching well above their weight and making games look absolutely incredible with huge landscapes. Xenoblade Chronicles X, you can go back to the original Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Even Skyward Sword was very nice, Twilight Princess, whatever the case is, right? So they've always done a great job over the decades. So I think that this could be a similar situation. That's why it's very interesting to see Takahashi kind of tease what they're working on next, because clearly it's not going to be a regular Nintendo Switch game. I definitely feel that it'll be for whatever Nintendo is doing next with them, and obviously they're going to help with that with the next Zelda, or if this Zelda game is actually going to be a launch that comes to the next system as well, or if it's just on Switch first, then it comes out on the next system. We just don't know where Nintendo's going to go with this one and what they're going to do. But I will say one thing, it's extremely exciting, especially after going through Xenoblade and playing 60+ hours. I'm just trying to get through the side quests and play whenever I have the free time, trying to get through and see the quality of this type of game. It's very exciting to see what Monolith Soft is doing next, because they're getting better and better and better as the time goes on, in my opinion. And I think that finally they did a great job with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and the Nintendo Switch, but you give them something a little bit more to work on. Plus, you also have that portability aspect, because I do feel that there will be a hybrid system for Nintendo next. I think that that's really where Monolith Soft just kind of super takes off. I mean, Xenoblade 3 is already a huge takeoff point, but I think that's just like the ascent of the jump, and they're still going up. They're not on like the way down at this point. They're still going up. They're still getting better. So I think that this is just going to really, really get better for Monolith Soft. And I think that they're going to do some incredible things in the future based off of what Takahashi had to say here. And of course, the anticipation and them working on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or the sequel. But what are your thoughts when it comes to Monolith Soft and what they're doing here, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel? How do you guys think this game is going to turn out? How do you think the open world is going to be? What do you think that they're going to do to add the sauce and extraness? What is Monolith Soft going to add to it that really is going to put this game over the top in terms of what we saw with Breath of the Wild and maybe even Xenoblade 3? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.